War rages across countless worlds, whether it be the great houses of the inner sphere vying for some territory or pirates raiding in the periphery. And the primary weapon used on these battlefields is the Battlemech. But not every mech is appropriate for every mission. Over the centuries, 8 commonly accepted Battlemech categories have emerged to illustrate the characteristics of different Battlemechs and their purposes on the battlefield. This video will review these roles and how commanders in the Battletech universe use these in combat. Ambushers are combat units that are intended to lie in wait for a targeted victim before they attack. Once the target enters effective weapon distance, the ambusher strikes. The role can be applied to any ground unit that can disguise its presence, such as through stealth or size, but is more generally applied to infantry units, lighter mechs, and light and medium combat vehicles. They will utilize cover as much as possible and are valued for their mobility or transportability. Ambushers also tend to be the cheaper units of their types, as they are often used to swarm the enemy. This role is commonly employed in urban combat. Scouts operate in the dangerous role of reconnaissance for the main force, utilizing their considerable speed advantage to complete intelligence gathering and avoid hostile weapons fire. Although they are generally not used at the lowest lance levels but reserved for larger tactical formations, they may also be sent on other specific missions. The scout may be the best option when speed is of the essence or when the enemy is supported primarily by light and fast mechs. Though known for both their light armor and weaponry, it is considered reckless to disregard the scout. Due to their high speed, other mechs find them hard to target, often compounded by these mechs' common ability to jump. Combine those two factors with heavy cover, the preferred method of approach by a scout, and the unit has a good opportunity to strike a target in its weakest points. Scouts often team up with medium and heavy mechs that can provide covering fire support and add the increased threat of a more dangerous opponent, often diverting attention away from the scout itself. This inattention may allow the scout the opportunity to attack from the rear. A scout's mobility is a defining feature for the role, trending to smaller units with the bare minimum armaments and light armor. Proper use of a scouting element avoids direct combat engagement unless employed in a swarm. They are often equipped with advanced electronics that lengthen their sensor range and detract from that of the enemy. Aside from pure reconnaissance, they also serve as spotters and light support for other units. Scouts are generally represented by light mechs, protomechs, hovercraft, and VTOLs. Strikers are generally fast battlemechs, second only to scouts, and armed with what would be considered a loadout of heavy, close-in weapons. They tend to fit between scouts and skirmishers on the combat platform spectrum because they are better armed than the former but less lightly armored in comparison to the latter. Their strike role relies on their speed, running in to face the enemy units and letting loose with as much firepower as they can unleash quickly. Generally operating in lance formations with other strikers, they'll attack one designated target until it is no longer a threat. While often costly in mechs, these bold tactics usually result in significant damage to the enemy. When operating in a mixed role formation, strikers are best paired with heavier units, such as skirmishers, that can still keep in weapons range to provide the needed support or to take advantage of the open target the striker has provided. This affords them the relative security of speed, or numbers, if swarming. Movement is the striker's key advantage, taking care to utilize cover as much as possible until they have close to short or medium range with their target. Battlemechs, protomechs, and fast combat vehicles often represent the striker role. Skirmishers are considered mechs suitably adapted to a fluid combat environment due partly to their weaponry, armor, speed, and ability to engage the enemy directly to inflict appreciable damage. Their flexibility allows a battlefield commander considerable leeway when compensating for tactical situations and local topography. They are often used to partner with slower or lighter mechs, such as strikers, engaging the enemy while the other unit maneuvers to complete the mission. They are also assigned deep recon missions, where the probability of return is too low to be acceptable for lighter mechs. Though appropriate for breakthrough scenarios, when opposing an enemy closing in or conducting a siege, skirmishers are not well suited for direct assaults. Their firepower is lacking when engaging a defensive heavy or assault class battlemech, especially when closing over considerable ground. When used in such assaults, they must be supported by snipers or missile boats. They can generally take on a heavier target with ease. They often command lances of slower strikers. The skirmisher role can be fulfilled by protomechs, medium-sized tanks, hovercraft, and VTOLs, though battlemechs are the preferable platforms. Snipers are battlemechs associated with a specific fire support mission on the battlefield, characterized by powerful long-range, direct-fire primary weapons. They operate as the direct-fire counterpart to missile boats. Though slow compared to skirmishers and strikers, their speed is not as much of a factor when used at a distance. This protects them from most counterfire. Though this use of a protected position, also known as a sniper's nest, is shared by missile boats, the two are differentiated by the latter's use of indirect fire weaponry. Since the sniper cannot attack from a completely hidden location, it usually fires from woodlands or other partial covers. It is common to have snipers protected from fast enemy units by strikers or brawlers, though stealth and distance are their most significant advantages. Almost any non-infantry unit can serve in the sniper role, though battlemechs and heavy tanks are the ideal options. Missile boats function as heavy, long-range fire support providers, whereby they attack the enemy from a protective distance with indirect fire. In order to either protect the missile boat or take full advantage of its mission, skirmishers and strikers generally close with the targeted enemy units, while the missile boat provides fire support from behind full cover, such as a hill. Typically comprised of battlemechs or heavy combat vehicles, they operate independently with defensive support nearby to avoid close-quarters fighting. They are functionally similar to the sniper role, though their primary armament is indirect. Brawlers are line units, typically assigned to battle lances, and are considered to have less mobility than some other combatants, such as skirmishers. However, they compensate for this with some long-range weaponry and more or heavier armor. Most often assigned to assault missions, they also serve to protect the slower juggernauts. In mobile or long-term battle scenarios, they are considered poor performers but do well in defensive roles or assaults on geographic locations, such as fortresses. Their escort role for juggernauts can be reversed, with good effect upon similar enemy mechs, especially when paired up with one or two other brawlers. They are also effective at forcing snipers and missile boats from stationary positions and holding the line against a charging enemy. Juggernauts are usually slow combat units but make up for this sluggishness with incredible amounts of short-range, heavy weaponry. As they lack both long-range weapons and speed, they rely on the sheer inertia of their forward movement, supported by copious amounts of armor. The battlefield longevity afforded by this protection allows for well-placed warheads on foreheads, eradicating enemies with as few trigger pulls as necessary. When working with skirmishers that outflank otherwise more maneuverable enemies, targets often get pushed right into the Juggernaut's most potent weapon arcs. They are used in both the assault and defense roles, as they are meant to secure targeted areas and are rugged and powerful enough to either close with an enemy or engage it head-on in a confined space. They are also sometimes used to provide bodyguard roles and command lances. The autocannon 20 is a weapon commonly found on Juggernauts, for it often causes critical damage with only one hit and can destroy a light battlemech early in the engagement. However, due to tactical experience with these behemoths, opponents often seek to remain out of range of their weaponry. For this reason, many pilots of Juggernauts will seek out targets with primary weapons of similar ranges to their own, such as medium lasers or short-range missiles. And now you know the different Battlemech roles in the Battletech universe so that you can build the best lance for your situation. This video concludes our general breakdown of Battlemechs and how they are used in the 31st century. Now we will start digging into the fantastic history of the Inner Sphere and the individual nations that make it up. So please like and subscribe, so you don't miss out. And remember, Mech Warrior, no guts, no galaxy.